everyone, and welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at two different array methods other than the ones that we've been talking about. So this is a continuation of exploring different array methods that are available in JavaScript. And in this particular lesson, we'll be looking at the array sum method as well as the array from method. So, like I said in the previous lesson, where we examined the uh, reduce method, and then I think the previous one we've talked about the filter method, the reduce write method, and so on and so forth. One thing that we should notice is that all these methods, some works without modifying the original arrays by creating new arrays, and some works by having to like modify the original array, which in some sort allows JavaScript to make an improved way of working or correcting those methods that modifies original array. I want to believe that we've been following along with each of these are development as it comes and as it is being released in different specifications for the language. So in this lesson, let's move on and let's talk about the array sum method. The sum method checks if some array values pass a test. I think this is more like the last lesson that we talked about. It actually check if some array passed if some values array values pass a test. If it does, it returns true, and if not, it returns false. So here is an example right here on my screen. You can see an array of numbers, and then the method being passed into the numbers and expect a function, and then a function which just try to check if the values in the arrays is greater than 18, and then we get an output. So let's take a look at this in the code editor to see how this works. So we're working with the JavaScript array sum method. The sum method. So it checks if elements in array pass a test provided as a function. Then if any element, then the sum method returns true if any element pass the test, otherwise false. So in case of every, so it will check all the elements, but in case of some, we are going to see that it checks if any elements instead of if all elements. So let's move on. Yeah, we have something here already. Yeah, so let's make use of this number. So over 18 here. Since we want to check a condition like this equals numbers dot sum, and then I've passed in a function I want to use to check, but I pass in this function over each element of my array. My function. So what are the things that it expects? So it expects the index, value index, and the last one is array. So those are my parameters, and here I can say return value is greater than 18. So if value is greater than 18, definitely we should get an output. So let me print out the results and let's see what happens. So now you can see that the output is true, and that is because of the fact that if any of the elements in the array pass a test, it will return true. If any element pass the test, otherwise false. And you can see that elements like 45, 24, 19, 76, and 25, all of the elements in this array passed the test. But what if I make one like 16 to be 16 instead of 76? Let's see what happens. It is true, and that is because there are still some elements in the array that pass the test. What happens if I make everything below 18? So let me change all this to maybe 15. So 19 is still greater, which means if I change this to 10, at this point I should get false because none of the elements is actually greater than 18. So this is the concept of the sum method. If any element pass a test, then it will return true. So if you have some of the element that pass the test, it will return true. Unless all the element does not meet the condition, that is when you will get a false as a response. So let's move on. The array from method. The array from method returns an array object from any iterable object, any object with a length property. Array from method has an optional parameter which allows you to execute a function on each element of the new array. So let's take a look at an example to get a clear head of this one. So array from method. The from method, the array from method creates an array from any object with a length property or any iterable object. The from method returns an array from any object with a length property or any iterable object. So an example would be this. So let me make an array and name it text equals A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so I have this, and then I want to make another variable. My array equals to array dot from text document dot get element by array. And right now we can see what I have. So right now you can see that I have my array splitted by comma, the results from the screen. And you will take notice of something that previously in instances like this, you will take your array name and pass it in here, and then you pass the method that you are trying to use over it, and then you go ahead and so on and so forth like that. But in this case, we are using array.from, and then we are passing in the array element itself, and that is because of the fact that this from method is not a string method, it's an array method. As you can see that what we have here is actually a string. So the purpose of the from method is to create an array from any object with a length property or any iterable object. So what we are trying to do basically is that we are trying to create an array from the string elements that we have as our variable on the first line, and that is the reason why you are seeing this part array.from, because the from is an array level, so it will not work on the string. But since we are trying to create a new array, so it makes sense to just pass in the array and then the method through which we are trying to create a new array instance from the string object. So this is how the from method works. Also, I want to talk about the other aspect that says array.from as an optional parameter. So it sometimes can take an optional parameter which will allow you to execute a function on each element of the new array. And what that simply means is this. So let's say I have these examples that I have here. I want to change it. So let me make a new one. Just call this one my numbers equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. And then const my, this is just a name, nothing special. So array dot from my numbers here. So I will make this as my first optional parameter, and I can do something like this here on my screen. And then on the other side, output, you will see that this first optional parameter, which happens to be my initial and original array, is being passed on with the new the new process that I want this array element to follow and explore. And that is why you are seeing this result. You can see that each element is being multiplied by 2 and it's giving me the results right here on the screen. Thank you, and in the next lesson continue. I'll see you there.